But how do we know if we have results? Well, normally the way good marketing shows good results is by the revenue it generates, right? Good marketing generates good revenue, basically. But there are some times when you have to market that it doesn't really, there's not an exact line to revenue. It's really hard to determine that. In fact, if you go back when I started marketing 30 years ago, there wasn't the type of analytics that we have today. Today, as a marketer, through the analytics we have online, we can really find out what results we have immediately. Sometimes within minutes of us taking action online, we could find out if our posts are liked, we could find out if someone's engaged, we can see our click-through rate, we can find out what landing pages they're going to, and that's all almost in real time. In fact, Google allows you to, and from the analytics point of view, you can see how many people are on your website in real time. So it's changed over the last couple of decades because of the fact that the internet, the digital marketing landscape has allowed us to get these real-time measures. So if you could imagine what marketing was like 30 years ago, when you took out an ad, and you might take out an ad in a magazine, let's say, and I would take out an ad, there could be a national magazine. And back then, 20, 30 years ago, a lot of us read national magazines. So if you read those national magazines, sometimes the national magazines had regional sections. So you might have the Southeast edition, the Northeast edition, the Midwest edition, and you could put an ad targeting that particular region in a magazine. And then you would know if your sales in that particular region in the Southeast, let's say, if you put an ad in that magazine and your sales ticked up, you could make an assumption that the ad you put in that Southeast magazine helped tick those sales up. So it wasn't direct, there wasn't a direct line, but you could make those assumptions because that's the type of advertising promotion of the vehicle you used in the Southeast. You also had TV and radio, and there are tools that we had to measure those type of ratings, the Nielsen ratings. And if we put an ad on TV or radio and that particular market, the sales were lifted up, we could assume that that marketing worked. So there were a lot of assumptions we made, and it was hard to get exact data to understand what those measures were. We had a lot of tools that we've used traditionally, and now we pulled them into the new digital marketing tools that we use today. So there's a lot of applications that are similar. But now the key to marketing is, I really believe there's no mistakes in marketing. I mean, there's theory and there's science behind it. We know that there's art and science behind marketing. But it's really a trial and error type of thing. As good as I think I am in marketing, there's no magic to it. You have to really understand what your target is, who your target audience is, create the messaging that makes sense, connect those two, and then go out with the messaging. I've been involved in marketing strategies, marketing programs that everybody in the room, and you have to assume everyone's smart in the room, including myself, right? We all came up with pretty good conclusions that this would be successful. And to our surprise, the answer was no, it wasn't successful. That's the issue. We thought it would be successful, but it failed. And then I've been on the opposite end of that spectrum where we said, no, this is probably not going to work, but we'll give it a try. And to our surprise, it worked. So even though we put a lot of thought, a lot of science, a lot of analytics behind it, you could still be right or you could still be wrong. So there really isn't a mistake. You don't know it's going to work until at the end of the day, it generates revenue and it generates sales, right? So the goal of marketing is to try something, to try out an action, but you have to go back and measure it. Measurement is the key. If you don't measure your results, you don't know if you did good or bad. That's why in today's environment, when we do digital marketing, we have things like A/B testing. If you put out a pay-per-click ad, you don't just put out one type of ad based on a series of keywords. You might have to do 2 or 3 and maybe do different ad groups to try to get the right mix of ads that work, to get that conversion that works. So you have to really look at the analytics. But to look at the analytics and understand if you did right or wrong, you have to create an objective. You have to create a KPI, a key performance indicator. Now, marketing objectives are different for everybody, right? And marketing objectives are different for service companies, they're different for product companies, they're different for if you're a product, if you're a beverage, or if you're a food product, if you're a candy product, or if you're a clothing product. Everyone has different marketing objectives. So it changes by product, by company. It can change by month. It can change even by region, by geography. So there's a lot of variables there when you come up with marketing objectives. And the same thing around KPIs. KPI stands for key performance indicators. That changes too. So if I'm company A and I have products 1 through 3, my KPIs are very different than your company B and your products 5 through 6, because the way I drive my business is different the way you drive your business. At the end of the day, you could probably find some common denominator KPIs. Like everyone wants to grow business. Everybody wants to grow market share. Everybody wants to sell more, right? So those are standard, but maybe it's in different regions. Maybe if it's in different products, maybe there's different margins, there's different timings. So it's all individualized based on the company and based on the product. So it's the marketer's responsibility to come up with your KPIs and their objectives. That's the goal, okay? That's the key thing. So that's the concept we're really going to focus in on today, looking at marketing objectives and KPIs. So if we think about this, we as marketers have to have these key performance indicators. We have to have these objectives. We have to have this goal. So why does that matter? Well, it's pretty simple. If you don't have a goal, you don't know if you've gotten there or not, right? Every company has to have a goal. Every company has to have an objective. Now, most companies are for profit, and if you're a for-profit company, you have a for-profit objective. Now, you could also have a nonprofit company, and it may be to feed 1 million people if you're a nonprofit food charity or something like that. So you can still have goals if you're a nonprofit organization, and the importance of goals really helps you get to where you need to go. If you don't, that expression, if you don't have a plan to fail, well, that's very true. You can't execute anything if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a target. Myself, I like to have my goals down on a piece of paper. And when I work with my team, I share those goals with them. In fact, I go one step further. I ask my team that I work with to help us create those goals because I want them to be empowered and part of the growth of that team. So it really helps to build that network if you have those goals built together as a team. So if you have objectives, if you have goals, you can head towards that common path. So why does it matter? It matters because you don't know your company, if your company is heading in the right direction, if you don't have a destination, right? And the way we think about this in planning, let's say you have a new company and you're trying to figure things out. Well, how do you get to that goal? How do you come up with the right formula to get to that goal, the right tactics, the right strategies? Because tactics and strategy are different, right? Strategy is more what we want to do, and tactics are more how we want to do it. So we sort of work backwards. So how do we do this? So we think about it like this. Let's say we want to take a trip, and we're down here in Miami. Let's say we want to take a road trip and travel up to Tallahassee. And if we leave from Miami to Tallahassee is about a 7-hour drive, sometimes 8 hours. Let's call it 8 hours, okay? It's an 8-hour drive if you stop briefly for a rest break or something like that. It's a long drive. Some people don't like to drive that in one complete day. So our particular trip, let's say we want to get there. We want to leave here on Sunday and get to Tallahassee by Monday night. So we have a full, almost a 48, 36-hour window. But during that trip, we also want to stop off at a place up in Orlando as we drive north from Miami through the Turnpike There's a Giordano's Pizza up there, which is out of Chicago, which makes these incredible deep dish pizzas. I think there's only 2 places up there in Orlando that you can get this deep dish pizza. So we want to stop there for lunch because it's great pizza and you can only get it from Chicago. And let's stop there and check that place out. So we'll have lunch there, but then on the way to Tallahassee, we also want to stop off at some type of store that happens to be only in Gainesville, because we've seen this store and we want to stop there. So on the way to Tallahassee, we're going to stop by Gainesville. And we know we could figure out we'll spend an hour in Gainesville, an hour and a half in Gainesville, and then drive. It's about 3 hours, 2 hours from Gainesville to Tallahassee, and we'll figure it out. So now we're sort of going backwards. If we know we want to make all these stops to get to our final destination, we have to go back, take the clock and go backwards. How much time do we need to get there? And we put together a roadmap, our tactics on how to get from Miami to Tallahassee, making those stops and getting there by a certain time. So our goal is to get to Tallahassee by a certain time, and we're making the steps in between to define how we get there. That's sort of what we have to do when we think about our marketing strategy. It's great to say we want to be the #1 company of all time, and that's fine. But now what do you have to do to be the #1 company of all time, and how quickly are you going to get there? So you have to really put together this roadmap, these tactics, the objectives to get to that particular section. And that's where the KPIs, the key performance indicators, and the objectives come into play to reach your goal. And that's why every company has to have some type of objectives to get to the top line goal, right? That's the main point there. Okay.